Usually when archaeologists go digging for treasures from Earth's distant past, the things they find are compatible with what they were looking for. Well, nobody's surprised when a team of archaeologists goes searching in Egypt and finds a mummy in a tomb, for instance. There are occasions when the unpredictable happens, though, and experts come across objects so weird, so out of place, they almost feel enchanted items that seem to carry stories of rituals, lost spells, or forgotten powers. This is a collection of those mysterious ancient artifacts of magic. Enochian. The mysterious lost language. Among the countless legends passed through human history, Enochian stands as one of the most captivating and most disputed. Known as the language of angels, the earliest reference to it appears in the journals of John Dee, a mathematician, astronomer, alchemist, and occult philosopher who served as an advisor to Queen Elizabeth I. Along with his colleague and fellow mystic Edward Kelly, Dee claimed in 1581 that they had established contact with angels, leading to the revelation of this arcane language. Dee and Kelly named it Enochian after the biblical patriarch Enoch, believed to be the last man who understood it. The language was entirely unique, featuring its own script and grammar, placing it far outside any other known system of communication or magical practice. This development marked a major turning point in Dee's career. Despite his earlier success in the sciences, he became increasingly consumed by esoteric knowledge, searching ancient texts for lost wisdom. An exhibit at the Royal College of Physicians displays several fascinating objects once owned by Dee, including a claw glass, a black mirror encased in sharkskin. Dee used this for scrying and divination, techniques he believed could reveal the future and help solve difficult matters through visions and symbols. Another noteworthy artifact in Dee's collection was a crystal, a sharply cut purple gem, mounted on a ring and chain, allegedly gifted to him by the archangel Uriel in 1582. According to Dee, this crystal played a crucial role in his and Kelly's alchemical experiments, particularly their attempt to create the Philosopher's Stone, the mythical substance said to transform base metals into gold. Dee credited the angels with guiding him in the writing of various manuscripts, many of which documented the Enochian language. After it had served its spiritual purpose, the crystal eventually made its way to British herbalist Nicholas Culpeper, who used it in his healing work. But Culpeper later claimed the crystal showed him the demonic face of a ghost, prompting him to hide it. By the age of 54, Dee had recorded hundreds of spirit sessions in which he and Kelly stared into reflective surfaces to receive messages from angelic beings. These visions often involved angels dictating detailed texts and complex tables in the Enochian language, along with instructions on how to use them. Dee and Kelly's rituals typically began with brief prayers to God and the archangels, followed by placing a stone on a table to summon divine forces. They believed this form of magic could grant supernatural powers, reshape European politics, and even predict the apocalypse. While parts of Dee's writings have been lost, interpretations of the Enochian system still vary widely. Despite controversy, the language was later embraced by occultists, including Anton LaVey, founder of the Church of Satan. Many Satanists used Enochian keys in their rites, with some adopting the full language. Modern practitioners still struggle to reconstruct the fragmented language, though scholars studying Sir Hans Sloane's preserved manuscripts have made progress. Today, original objects like the claw glass and Dee's crystal remain on display at the British Museum in London. Alright, now let's move to supernatural Viking magic wand. Well, now this is cool. In 1894, an astonishing discovery was made in the grave of a woman dating back to the 9th or 10th century in Røsta, Norway, a puzzling metal rod with Viking origins. The object, roughly 35 inches in length and forged from iron, a metal commonly used during the Norse Iron Age, bore a peculiar bend on one end resembling a hook, with a rounded knob on the opposite side to serve as a handle. Initially, scholars assumed it might have been a practical tool, possibly used for fishing or as a roasting spit, but a 2013 study offered a new interpretation. The object was likely a wand, crafted for use in witchcraft and spellcasting. Further investigation led archaeologists to believe the rod probably belonged to a sorceress, most likely the very woman with whom it was buried. The bent shape may have served a ritual purpose, possibly intended to neutralize its magical abilities and ensure the sorceress remained powerless in death. This mirrored custom seen in other burials, where weapons of fallen warriors were deliberately deformed to mark their defeat and symbolically disarm them in the afterlife. Historical documentation and physical artifacts suggest this wand played a role in Seether, a branch of Viking magic. Predominantly practiced by women, Seether was integral to Norse spiritual life, used for divination, casting curses, and seeking guidance during periods of uncertainty. Despite its importance, Seether was often viewed as deceptive and inappropriate for men, leading it to be primarily associated with female practitioners. The burial also included a whalebone plaque, hinting at the high social rank of the woman, likely a respected spiritual figure. Similar objects found in other elite female graves from the Viking Age reinforce the idea that Seether was a widespread and respected tradition among high-status Viking women. With the spread of Christianity around 1000 AD, such magical practices gradually faded. Today, the original wand is part of the British Museum's collection, offering a rare and powerful glimpse into the mystical world of Viking sorcery. And what you've seen on Netflix about Vikings was just half the story. Satyr Square and the Oath Skull. Few archaeological finds involving human remains are as strange or compelling as the so-called Oath Skull. Discovered in Munster, a town in the Westphalia region of northern Germany, the skull was unearthed in 2015. Preserved inside a sealed wooden box, the skull's exceptional condition raised immediate interest among scholars. Protected from moisture and air, the skull remained largely intact, and early reports in scientific journals emphasized the rare state of preservation. The term oath skull stems from the belief that it was once used in solemn court proceedings. It's thought that defendants in the late medieval Vemic courts swore oaths upon it, binding themselves to spiritual and legal truth. These courts were known for their solemn rituals and intense reverence for oaths, often blending legal and religious elements. What makes this skull especially fascinating is the inscription engraved on its surface, a satyr square. This acrostic features 5 Latin words forming a palindrome that can be read in multiple directions. Believed to hold protective and magical powers, the satyr square was often used in healing spells and exorcisms. Its presence on the skull suggests it served a dual function, not only as a legal relic, but also as a talisman meant to invoke divine protection and amplify the spiritual weight of sworn oaths. The artifact has been dated to the 15th or 16th century, exactly the period when Vemic courts were active and regularly used such mystical symbols in their practices. The square itself, satyr, epo, tenet, opera, rotas, forms a symmetrical pattern readable forwards, backwards, vertically, and horizontally. 2 layouts exist, the rotas square and the satyr square. In earlier Roman history, the rotas configuration was more common, while during the medieval period, the satyr layout gained popularity. The oldest known examples of these squares go back to Roman times. Notably, Italian archaeologist Matteo della Corte found 2 in Pompeii, one in 1925 at the house of Publius Pacius Proculus, and another in 1936 near Pompeii's amphitheater. Both were in the rotas format and dated between 50 and 79 AD. Over the years, satyr squares have been discovered in monasteries, hermitages, and Templar sites across Europe, evidence of their enduring mystical and spiritual role. Despite over a century of research, the exact origin and true purpose of the square remain elusive. In 2003, American historian Rosemary Sheldon called it one of the oldest unsolved word puzzles in the world, a sentiment echoed by many in the fields of archaeology and historical linguistics. Crystal divination dice. Crystal divination, like dice-based fortune-telling, is a practice as ancient as civilization itself, having appeared in many forms across countless cultures. One of the most fascinating versions is astragalomancy, a method of divination using dice inscribed with letters or numbers. But what exactly did this practice involve? Astragalomancy is most commonly associated with astragali, a form of dice carved from the knuckle bones of sheep or goats. These curious relics were often discovered across the Mediterranean and Near East, especially in places tied to religious rituals. In ancient Greece, where astragalomancy was widely embraced, practitioners would roll these carved bones and then consult oracles, often in the form of statues or monoliths, to interpret the results. The dice themselves were sometimes crafted from bronze or wood, with faces marked by the numbers 1, 3, 4, and 6. Each pair of opposite sides added up to 7. The numbers rolled were then matched with corresponding letters to form words, answers to the questions posed by the diviner. These responses were decoded according to specific cultural and spiritual codes, often believed to be direct messages from the gods. Now that's amazing. Major institutions like the Louvre, the British Museum, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art hold examples of these ancient dice, which date back to the Hellenistic and Roman periods, spanning from the 2nd century BCE to the 4th century CE. Notably, these include ixochedrons, 20-sided polyhedral dice, each face marked with either Greek or Roman characters. One of the most well-known examples is a 20-sided crystal die held at the Louvre. It features Roman letters and numerals. The 10-side faces carry letters from A to K and numbers from 1 to 10, while the top and bottom triangle faces are marked with L to V and the numbers 11 through 20. Materials for these dice varied significantly, ranging from simple bone and ivory to luxurious substances like bronze, alabaster, marble, amber, onyx, faience, or jet. In the Greco-Roman world, one notable reference to astragalomancy comes from the Homeromanteon, a text describing how dice were cast alongside written manuals that contained predetermined responses. The Romans, much like their Greek predecessors, used these dice to generate numbers tied to pre-written queries and divine messages in sacred oracles. But astragalomancy wasn't confined to just Greece and Rome. The practice appeared in numerous global cultures. In ancient Tibet, for example, it influenced judicial decisions related to debts, marriage, and military drafts. Variants of this method also appeared in Egypt, Turkey, China, and even regions of South America, where llama bones were used in place of sheep or goats. These bones were believed to have unique powers, capable of contacting the spirits of the departed. To this day, the true scope and deeper meaning of astragalomancy remain largely obscure. Archaeologists continue exploring their roots, aiming to uncover how these humble dice may have acted as spiritual conduits, bridging mortal seekers with divine answers from the gods and the unknown. Death magic cave lamps. Hidden on the western slopes of the Jerusalem hills lies a shadowy cave long believed to have been a hub for necromantic rituals, black magic, and secret cult activity. Archaeologists studying the site have proposed that it may have been seen as a portal to the underworld, a sacred threshold cloaked in ancient superstition and spiritual ceremony. Upon entering, explorers descend into a broad, open chamber, its stone floor partially buried under a large heap of rocks. At one time, a natural spring flowed within the cave, believed to have possessed powers related to healing and fertility. Researchers Atun Clean and Boaz Zissou documented the site extensively, describing a deep well at one end and a carved pool fed by the spring's water. Dating back to the late Roman Empire, from the 2nd and 4th centuries AD, the cave revealed an array of Roman-era objects. These included pottery, oil lamps, weapons, and human skulls. The arrangement of these remains, particularly the skulls placed deep in crevices, strongly suggests ceremonial use, possibly to commune with or summon spirits of the deceased. Necromancy, based on the idea that spirits transcend the boundaries of space and time, played a vital role in the religious beliefs of various ancient civilizations, particularly Greco-Roman societies. Natural springs and subterranean spaces were often regarded as sacred entry points to the spirit realm, liminal zones where the veil between the living and the dead thinned. The lamps, scattered throughout the chamber, served a function far beyond lighting. Scholars propose they were tools of spiritual communication, thought to be energized by supernatural entities, be they divine spirits, ancient gods, or malevolent demons. Historical accounts also note a widespread belief that spirits feared certain metals like bronze or iron, possibly explaining the inclusion of weapons in the cave. Such arms may have been brought by ritual participants for protection against hostile forces during these arcane ceremonies. This haunting cave has long inspired folklore and myth, attracting curious visitors for centuries. It was even a known destination in the Bronze Age and reportedly served as a hideout for Jewish rebels during the 2nd century. Witch bottles? Well, I don't know if this thing sounds more like folklore or a DIY horror trap, but in the 16th and 17th centuries, witch bottles were a serious line of defense against dark magic. Back then, people believed witches could send spirits, sometimes their own, to torment victims and cause illness. So how did you protect yourself? Apparently with a spell of your own. You'd start by filling a bottle with your urine or salt water or wine. If nature wasn't calling, then toss in pins, nails, and needles alongside red threads and a bit of rosemary. Once sealed, you'd bury it somewhere on your property. The idea was very simple. The red thread would lure the malevolent spirit, the sharp objects would trap and pierce it, and the liquid would drown it. Rosemary would then carry the now twice dead spirit far away. As long as the bottle remained hidden and unbroken, your home was shielded from most supernatural attacks. What the heck? The Hand of Glory. If you're a fan of Harry Potter, you may already know a bit about this eerie object, once seen on the shelves at Borgin and Burke's. Though it sounds completely fictional, several of these have actually existed, relics from occult traditions in Europe during the 1800s or so. A real Hand of Glory was crafted by first hanging a man for a crime, usually theft. Once he was dead, one of his hands, left or right, I don't know, was cut off while his body was still suspended. The hand was then placed in a barrel filled with a mixture of salt and saltpeter, in other words, potassium nitrate, and left to dry. At the same time, fat from the same man was collected and turned into a candle. Once the hand was fully mummified, the candle was inserted into it, turning the hand into a sort of candle holder. When lit, the candle was said to put everyone inside the house to sleep, allowing the thief holding it to steal undisturbed. The flame was also believed to resist water, only blood or milk could extinguish it. You won't find one of these at Walmart, but if you search online, you might get lucky. The one shown here is the real deal, held in a museum. So what do you think about these magical and mysterious ancient artifacts? Well, let us know. And as we always say, if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, share it, and hit that subscribe button for more amazing content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.